one of the standout things, to me at least, for the 6 episodes I've seen, is the score for this season. It's got a real classic feeling compared to the classic films and the older shows. What was your edict, or were you given an edict when you guys came on board for season 3?
I think the biggest thing was, well, the first thing was when I saw it had pretty much already been shot. I was on set a few times, so I think the biggest edict was a personal edict of don't screw it up. Because you know when you watch, I've been on shows where you watch it and you're like, well, it's pretty good. This one you watch it and I just sat and I binged and I watched it 3 or 4 times and I'm like, oh my goodness me, this is really good. So, I think that was a big one. But I mean, musically, for me, I think it was a little bit about bringing the sort of naval thing from Wrath of Khan and some of what James Horner brought, as well as obviously the Jerry Goldsmith thing, but a bit more of that sort of militaristic feeling, and weaving that into it in a way that didn't feel like it was sort of a time warp, but in a way that felt sort of right for now. Kind of, I mean, Terry and I often talked about like what would James Horner do if he were here now, kind of thing, and I think that was a lot of the approach.
Yeah, and I think the big challenge was, times have changed slightly since Next Generation was on the air. So how do we take this material and bring it into this current aesthetic of filmmaking without it feeling we pushed it too far into something modern, but still having the nostalgia feel alive and stay in the spirit of what fans want to go back to.
The biggest part of it for me also is the themes.
Yeah.
You have to treat them like absolute nuggets of gold, and one of the things you can't do is plaster them everywhere. You can't literally use them like the wallpaper on some kid's bedroom or something. We want to have that sort of sense of like we're telling a story and not just sort of going you don't want the music to be a commentator the whole time going, you're watching Star Trek, did you forget? You're watching Star Trek. I mean, we get it, we know it. So it's using them in a very respectful way and then sort of finding ways to develop them, because I mean that's the other thing, every time you look at Jerry Goldsmith's work in particular, every movie he found a new way of putting a spin on it, and everything from, and we literally went down to when we re-recorded certain pieces of music, because there are a few, we would go back and I would look at the movies and they were different speeds in different movies, and go back and say, okay, well, do we want to be the speed from Nemesis, or do we want to look at this there, or what are we trying to say with this? So.
Yeah, because certainly like in the end titles you use the main theme from First Contact, but then you also take the Next Generation movie version of the main title show theme.
Oh, the orchestra. The funniest thing is when we recorded any of those, they would just, and some of the players had played on those movies, and it was one of those things where they would just sit there. Our French horn players are fabulous French horn players. The principal of the Hollywood Bowl, a guy called Dylan Hart, and he would just, you could just see every time he came up on the sheet music in front of him, sort of looked over at him and he just smiled back, and he was like, okay, this is going to be fun.
But I also noticed along the way, like there'd be a little thread of the theme from Star Trek 4, or some of those older. There's just a little nugget along the way.
Well spotted.
Well, it's one of my favorite films. I like the score. A lot of people don't, but I like that one. Was it a challenge to use any of that score that was produced for film in a television production? Were there stuff where you had to fight battles, or?
I don't think
so
at all,
much.
because all of this is so timeless, to me at least, and musically speaking, none of it feels old or dated. So whatever we were given as material to use and incorporate, it felt very natural and organic.
And from just a standpoint with Paramount, I think it was one of those, Paramount and CBS, they both realised what we were trying to do, and it was one of those ones, if you show, not tell. And we sort of said, okay, there's certainly moments, specifically in episode 6, where we come back to, in 60 seconds, we come back to 5 separate themes.
I know what you're talking about.
And so it's like you couldn't not do that. I mean, if we didn't do that, it would seem like a sort of disservice. But I mean, part of doing that was also then to say, how do you present it in a way that honours it and isn't just like hitting a button?
Exactly.
Like,
let's play theme song.
That's like a needle drop. And so that I think a lot of what we did was look at the heart of why those tunes worked and what they were saying, and particularly with Voyager's tune, I think that was like one that every time we don't use it much, but when we do use it, we want it to mean something. So.
There's a lot of contemporary needle drops, as you put it, in the first several episodes as well. Were you involved with any of those choices, or is that separate from your department?
Do you know, most of those are courtesy of Drew Nichols, our editor, who is also one of the most phenomenal music editors, although he would just sort of bashfully say, no, I'm not. But he's someone who's able to cut those things and really choose incredibly well about, especially source music for Liam Shaw, for the dinner sequence, and a couple of the other scenes where you really want it to say something. It's not just background music, but you're sort of saying something about the character. And he understands that innately. So most of that was in when we got there.